Welcome to a brand new season of Inside the World of TCR. Our monthly trip around the TCR universe returns for 2019 with more content and more episodes. On the menu today, WTCR at Marrakesh, the double meeting at the Hungaroring of WTCR and TCR Europe, TCR Asia at Sepang, TCR Germany at Oschersleben, TCR Russia at Grozny and TCR Italy at Monza. So, let's get the new season started. Thanks to an impressive field of 26 top-level drivers in cars from 7 different brands, the motorsport media unanimously agreed that the 2019 WTCR, which kicked off at the beginning of April on the street circuit at Marrakech, as one of the peaks in the history of touring car competition. At the start of the first race, Esteban Guerrieri made good use of pole and kept Ted Bjerke at bay. Behind them, Néstor Girolami and Andy Priaulx clashed and the Briton took third. On lap 5, Jean-Carl Venet's Audi pushed Andy Priaulx in the brand new Chinese Lynk & Co wide, and the latter dropped from 3rd to 6th. On lap 11, 2018 TCR Europe winner Mikel Azcona in a Cupra hit the Hyundai of Norbert Michelisz and passed him to take 9th place. But the manoeuvre was considered unfair by race control, and the Spaniard was given a 5-second penalty that dropped him to 15th. Esteban Guerrieri converted his pole position into a lights-to-flag victory, opening the score for the 2019 season. The Argentine crossed the finishing line with a margin of just 0.6 over Ted Bjerke, who gave Lynk & Co a podium result in its maiden race. Guerrieri's teammate Néstor Girolami completed the podium, providing the icing on the cake for Munich Motorsport and Honda. The third driver to take the checkered flag was Jean-Carl Venet in the WRT Audi. But the Frenchman was handed a 5-second penalty for pushing Andy Priaulx in the first part of the race, and so dropped to 7th. For Guerrieri, it was time for celebration. At the start of the second race, Nicky Catsburg sprinted from pole and led from Gabriele Tarquini, Jean-Carl Venet and Jan Ehrlacher, who overtook Esteban Guerrieri at turn 1. Mikel Azcona retained his 6th position as he kept Bjerke and Ivan Muller at bay. In the middle of the field, Gordon Shedden sent Tom Coronel into a spin. The incident delayed Rob Huff and Benjamin Leuchter and eliminated Mehdi Benani. The positions were frozen until Nicky Catsburg crashed from the lead on lap 10. His car swerved to the right while braking for a chicane and went straight into the tyre wall. The safety car was deployed and circulated until the 14th lap. That allowed the reigning champion, 57-year-old Gabriele Tarquini, to grab the win. Venet was 2nd, Ehrlacher 3rd, Guerrieri 4th, Azcona 5th and Bjerke 6th. In the third race, Frederik Vervisch in an Audi made a poor start from pole and was passed by Ivan Muller and Ted Bjerke, both in the blue Lynk & Co cars. The Belgian was able to defend 3rd position ahead of the Cupra of Mikel Azcona. During the first lap, Jan Ehrlacher and Tiago Monteiro collided and crashed, prompting the safety car to reappear. As you can see from the onboard camera, the impact was worse than it first looked. Suddenly on lap 12, Ivan Muller's pace faded, and on the following lap the Frenchman slowed down and headed for the pits, allowing his teammate Ted Bjerke to inherit the lead. On lap 20, Jean-Carl Venet spun and crashed from 5th due to brake failure, which resulted in the safety car being deployed again, this time until the end of the race. Ted Bjerke won the race in front of Vervisch and Azcona, going into motorsport history, the Swede giving Lynk & Co its maiden victory, the first ever for a Chinese manufacturer in an international motor race. On top of that, Bjerke also took the lead in the drivers' standings. Before the second round of the season at the Hungaroring, we had a chat with 2 drivers coming back to World Touring Cars, 3-time WTCC winner Andy Priaulx and Augusto Farfus.
It's been 9 years since I've driven in World Touring Car, but have raced in all of those years in GT and sports car, with some V8 supercar and British touring car in between, but it's lovely coming back, same people, different championship, different challenge, different regulation, front wheel drive, you know, it's all new to me, so I'm kind of the most experienced rookie on the grid.
I didn't expect, honestly, to find such a beautiful paddock, such a strong field, but it's still, I think the championship managed to keep this family spirit, or this like community spirit, which is important, because nowadays motorsport, it is not an easy time for motorsport. There is a changing in budgets, changing in approach of the big companies, but here somehow I feel the championship managed to keep alive this team spirit.
In the first race at the Hungaroring, Nestor Girolami's Honda started well from pole and took the lead from Ivan Muller's Lincoln Co. and the Cupra of Aurelien Panis. Coming out of turn 1, Panis lost 2 places when he was passed by Guerrieri and Erlaché. On lap 5, Jan Erlaché went wide at turn 2 and made contact with Jean-Carl Venet, who moved up to 4th position ahead of Panis. Erlaché retired with damage to the front suspension. For the Argentinian, Nestor Girolami, this was his maiden win in the WTCR, beating Ivan Muller and his own teammate Esteban Guerrieri. The second race was a display of the best kind of touring car racing, non-stop side-to-side, bumper-to-bumper, and overtaking all over the place. Daniel Hagloff in a Cupra started second and took the lead into the first corner, but the best start came from Nestor Girolami. The Argentinian, probably galvanised by his win in the first race, was 9th on the grid, but already second after just 2 corners. While behind, there was this contact between Venet and Azcona. Reigning WTCR champion Gabriele Tarquini had a race to forget. First, a contact with Esteban Guerrieri's Honda Civic, and then with the Lincoln Co. of Jan Erlaché, before a puncture sent him into the pits on lap 10. So, no points for Tarquini. Girolami scored his second win of the weekend. Venet was second, and Hagloff recorded his first WTCR podium finish. In the last race of the weekend, the Honda of Esteban Guerrieri beat pole sitter Norbert Mikulich to turn 1, with Tarquini also quickly passing the local hero to lie in second place. The leading trio remained unchanged until lap 4, and Guerrieri seemed to make a mistake that allowed both Tarquini and Mikulich to pass. On lap 11, Guerrieri hit the barriers at turn 14 after what appeared to be a brake failure, with the safety car circulating for 3 laps until the car could be recovered. So Tarquini won his second race of the season in front of his teammate Mikulich, bringing home a 1-2 finish for Hyundai, which restored the pride of the Korean manufacturer after the 2 Honda wins. The Lincoln Co. of Jan Erlaché completed the podium places. In the driver's standings, Girolami leads with a 10-point gap on Guerrieri and 19 on Björk. Tarquini is 4th, Venet 5th and Azcona 6th. But the battle for the title still has a very long way to go. At the Hungaroring, alongside the WTCR, fans also enjoyed the opening round of TCR Europe, with a record entry of 37 cars from a total of 7 different car brands. With established touring car drivers like Mato Homola, Dusan Borkovic and Josh Files, but also strong drivers from other categories like Nelson Ponciatici and Santiago Urrutia, just to name a few. It's a near impossible task to predict a favourite for the title. At the start of the first race, Frenchman Nathan Biel's Hyundai stalled, and Belgium's Maxime Potti, coming from behind in a Volkswagen Golf, crashed into him and would have to retire. Mato Homola in a Hyundai starting from pole took the lead in front of his teammate Josh Files, who was 4th on the grid, but had a better start than Nelson Ponciatici and Andreas Beckman, both also in Hyundais. The 22-year-old Uruguayan driver Santiago Urrutia comes from a successful background in single-seater cars, especially Indy Lights, but was really unlucky. After only 2 corners, his Audi went off the track, following contact with the Swede Andreas Beckman. Even though he's a father now, it seems Dusan Borkovic hasn't lost his speed. This was on lap 5, when he overtook Aurelien Comte at turn 2 for 5th. Another position was lost by the French driver's Peugeot just 1 lap later at the same corner, when Hungary's Danny Nagy in yet another Hyundai overtook him for 6th. And a few corners later, Belgium's Gilles Magnus, driving an Audi, overtook Comte, who dropped to 8th. Matto Homola converted his pole position into victory to become the first winner of the 2019 TCR Europe Series. Josh Files finished 2nd and Nelson Ponciatici of M Racing was 3rd, completing a Hyundai 1-2-3. Julien Brichet was the best of the rest, but after the race was excluded because his car was underweight. For the 24-year-old Slovak Matto Homola, it was time to celebrate and to receive the well-deserved winner's trophy. Race 2 started with an empty spot on the grid as Josh Files' front left wishbone bearing needed to be changed, and so the Brit had to start the race from the pit lane. Light rain began to fall just before the start, making race 2's outcome even more uncertain. Santiago Urrutia started from pole, but into the first corner he was already in the middle of a group of 4 cars, with Borkovic, Nagy and Brichet. Just 2 corners later, the Renault Megane, driven by John Filippi, went off track after contact with Gianni Morbidelli, damaging the tyre barrier, as you can clearly see. But before that incident, on the start-finish line, Joachim Gallas's Golf, starting from the back of the grid, had crashed into the pit wall. The safety car came out to allow the marshals to recover the 2 crashed cars and to repair the barriers. Once the race resumed and still on a very slippery track, Santiago Urrutia went wide at turn 5 and was overtaken by both Borkovic and Brichet. The Uruguayan then cut the chicane to hold on to his 3rd position from a charging Gilles Magnus. It wasn't easy in such conditions to give the position back to Brichet without being overtaken by Magnus. This side-by-side racing with Brichet was very well managed by a driver who is, after all, new to touring cars. One lap later, this terrific fight between Borkovic and Brichet took place, to the delight of the spectators. Despite a slight touch and his car sliding on the greasy track, the Serbian defended his position. Corners later, the duel became a 3-way affair, with the addition of the Belgian Gilles Magnus in an Audi, who overtook Brichet after he was blocked by Borkovic. But it didn't last long. The Frenchman was looking for revenge after being disqualified from race 1 and seemed to have a different pace. He retook 3rd place, touched Borkovic from behind, went wide, and was then again side by side with Magnus. Into the last corner, he was on the inside, made the slightest of contacts with Magnus, and headed off once again in pursuit of Borkovic. On the following lap, Brichet finally managed to overtake Borkovic, who went sideways coming out of turn 1. 8 laps into the race, and Brichet took the lead when he overtook Danny Nagy, and now looked set to complete a perfect race after starting from 5th on the grid on a very low-grip track, with the rain still falling. But the action wasn't over. Another fierce battle saw Magnus challenging Nagy for the 2nd spot on the podium. Despite being touched from behind going into turn 2, the Belgian controlled his Audi and managed to complete his overtaking move on the Hungarian. Julien Brichet took the win in front of Magnus and Nagy. Borkovic was 4th and Ponciatici 5th, both scoring vital points in the drivers' standings. Urrutia finished 6th. Julien Brichet, JSB Competition and Peugeot Sport were all delighted at the end. But 19-year-old Gilles Magnus was ecstatic. Not only had he scored his first podium finish under very difficult track conditions in his first touring car appearance, but he also took the lead in the drivers' standings. With only 5 points separating the top 6 drivers, the battle for the title had started exactly as expected, 100% unpredictable. Yet more strong drivers could still join that battle, starting from the next round at Hockenheim at the end of May. The reigning TCR Asia champion Luca Enschler began the season in style by setting pole position at the Sepang International Circuit for the opening event. At the start, too much wheel spin meant that Teo Koikord, who was second on the grid, found himself in the middle of the pack. Pepe Oriola resisted the assault from Diego Moran to take second place. On lap 5, when the action resumed after a safety car period, Koikord overtook Oriola for third at turn 1. 4 laps later, the Frenchman then overtook Diego Moran for second. So Luca Enschler started the new season as he finished the old with a win. Koikord was second, Moran third, Oriola fourth, Davi fifth and Daniel Miranda sixth. A very happy dad, Franz Enschler, at the end of the race. Luca had done it again. Roland Hurtner, who sat on pole of the top 10 reverse grid in his Team Oettinger Golf GTI, made a poor start to race 2. Miranda was first into turn 1, followed by Moran, Hurtner, Hui, Oriola and Enschler. There were dramas at turn 1 as Kim Jin-soo spun after a contact with Adam Khalid. Then a tough battle for third between Enschler and Oriola livened up the race. This was lap 4 when the German overtook the Spaniard after a slight contact. The same place 1 lap later, and Oriola retook third from Enschler. Once again there was a touch between the two. On lap 6, Diego Moran took the lead from Daniel Miranda. On lap 7, Enschler tried to overtake Oriola on the outside of turn 1. They clashed, and the German's Hyundai spun off and stopped in the gravel. Moran then won from Miranda, Oriola and Koikord. The Ecuadorian driver also took the lead in the drivers' standings with a 6-point gap over Koikord and 12 on both Oriola and Enschler. Probably the 2 favourites for the final crown. TCR Asia's second event will take place at Zhuhai International Circuit in China on May the 4th and 5th. 2019 TCR Germany's opening round took place at Oschersleben on the last weekend of April. Pole sitter Max Hesse in a Hyundai made a good start, but was pretty soon overtaken by the Honda Civic of Mike Halder. Halder took the win in front of Hesse and reigning champion Harold Procik. Antti Buri was third in front of Bradley Burns and Koikord. In the second race, it was the perfect start for Antti Buri, who passed the 2 drivers on the front row, Guido Naumann and Michael Halder, to take the lead into turn 1. On lap 10, Halder managed to overtake Koikord for second with a perfect move and started chasing Buri. But the Finn managed to keep the lead till the end to grab the win in front of Halder, who now leads the championship in front of Hesse and Buri. In 2019, TCR Russia will be contested over 7 rounds. The first took place in Grozny. On a track which was still damp after morning rain, Kirill Ladijin in a Lada made good use of pole and led from his teammate Mikhail Grachov, who was pushed from behind into turn 1 by the Audi of Klim Gavrilov. Reigning champion Dmitry Bragin dropped to the back of the field after a spin on lap 1, caused by a contact with Lukashevich. Ladijin comfortably won this first race of the season, and for Lada it was a 1-2 finish with Grachov in second. After contact between Duducarlo and Gavrilov in the closing laps of the race, Maslenikov managed to finish third. In the second race, Alexei Duducarlo in an Audi started from pole, but Dmitry Bragin made a better start from the outside of the front row and led into turn 1. Duducarlo then kept Klim Gavrilov at bay to keep second place. 13 laps into the race, and local Chechen driver Ibrahim Akhmedov crashed after a collision with Alexander Marushko. The safety car was deployed to recover the 2 Volkswagens, and racing resumed 3 laps later. In the end, triple TCR Russia champion Dmitry Bragin managed to win once again, despite changing car nearly every year. Alexei Duducarlo and Mikhail Grachov completed the podium. while race 1 winner Kirill Ladijin finished 4th and so retained the leadership in the standings with a 3-point gap on Bragin and Grachov. The 2019 TCR Italy season kicked off at the Temple of Speed, the legendary circuit of Monza. At the start of the first race, pole sitter Enrico Bettera stalled and was passed by almost the entire field. Matteo Greco's Cupra then took the lead in front of Massimiliano Mugelli in an Alfa Romeo Giulietta into the Prima Variante. 19-year-old Russian Klim Gavrilov, at the wheel of the LTA Rally Audi RS3 LMS, came to Monza as a guest driver and played a crucial role in front. This was when he overtook Mugelli for second. After a first touch in the Prima Variante, this second contact at La Roggia between Tavano and Mugelli forced the latter to pit with a flat tyre. At the end of lap 2, with this gutsy manoeuvre at the Parabolica, Klim Gavrilov passed Matteo Greco and so took the lead of the race. Four laps in, and Salvatore Tavano overtook Matteo Greco in another Cupra for second into the first chicane. On the same lap but on the back straight, this was the way Marco Pellegrini overtook Matteo Greco for third into the Parabolica. But it was too aggressive for the stewards, and a 25-second penalty would be given to Pellegrini at the end of the race. On lap 8, Pellegrini was in a three-way fight with Felix Wimmer's Cupra and Jacopo Guidetti's Audi. The three of them collided and Pellegrini spun off. So, the first winner of the 2019 campaign turned out to be a Russian, Klim Gavrilov. Tavano was second, Greco third, Guidetti fourth, Wimmer fifth, and Nardini sixth. So, huge satisfaction in the Mini Parc Fermé for the driver from St. Petersburg. There was an obvious jump start in race 2 for Marco Pellegrini from second on the grid, and so an inevitable drive-through for him. On a drying track after the morning showers, Felix Wimmer on wet tyres took the lead from the top 10 reverse pole, while some drivers chose slicks and others mixed the two. Two laps into the race, and Massimiliano Mugelli took the lead after he overtook Felix Wimmer in the braking zone into Variante della Roggia. One lap later into the Parabolica, Wimmer couldn't defend the attack from Argenti's Opel Astra and Gavrilov's Audi. The Austrian went wide and lost 2 positions in just one corner. Halfway through the race, Bettera was the fastest on track. This was when, in the middle of traffic, he overtook the tenacious Gavrilov at the first chicane. At the end of that same lap, Enrico Bettera also managed to overtake Andrea Argenti and started to chase Mugelli, who was still leading the race. Mugelli, whose Alfa Romeo Giulietta was on wets, struggled to keep his pursuers behind. At the Parabolica, Gavrilov lost control of his Audi and collected both Mugelli and Greco. The latter spun off onto the gravel, the Russian retired with broken suspension, and Mugelli pitted for repairs while the safety car was deployed. When the race resumed, Jacopo Guidetti overtook Andrea Argenti right at the exit of the Prima Variante and moved up into third in the standings. Bettera took the win in front of Tavano and Guidetti. Pellegrini was fourth, Bergonzini fifth, and Argenti sixth. Huge celebrations at the end for the 48-year-old race winner, Bettera. In the driver's standings, Tavano takes the lead with an 8-point gap over Bettera. Guidetti is third, Gavrilov fourth, Pellegrini fifth, and Greco sixth. TCR Italy will be back on May the 18th at Misano. That then was the first episode of Inside the World of TCR for 2019. We'll be back in 1 month's time with more touring car action from all over the world. But for now, it's goodbye.